year, public schools and educators already are asked to stretch resources further. If this amendment passes, vouchers will only deepen that strain.
This was coverage from our night team report a few nights ago. Trimble County School Superintendent Todd Neese was right there in Middletown. He joined one of many superintendents just last week to express their thoughts about Kentucky's constitutional amendment number 2 on your ballot in November. If passed next month, that amendment would reallocate some taxpayer money from public schools into private or charter schools and some school vouchers. While public school leaders stand against it, Asa Coleman, founder of Louisville's Coleman Preparatory Academy, says the amendment prioritizes students' interests.
Public school isn't going anywhere. People might still pick public school. But if we really care about students excelling, we have to be open to the idea that there are other ways to get there.
Here's what Kentucky's Amendment 2 will say on the ballot when you face it to give parents choices and educational opportunities for their children. Are you in favor of enabling the General Assembly to provide financial support for the education costs of students in kindergarten through 12th grade who are outside the system of common public schools? To break down the amendment on both sides, right down the middle, we asked Kentucky education expert Sam Corbett to join us here at 5:30.
Well, Sam, thanks for being here, first of all.
My
we
pleasure.
appreciate it. Everybody's talking about this. Now, listen, anytime I watch local, programming, I'm seeing the yes commercials, the no commercials. They are spending a lot of money on this issue. We've got political groups on both sides. Who are these people? Why are they spending so much money on this issue?
Well, it's actually millions of dollars from what we're hearing. The people that are on the vote yes side is a lot of out-of-state money. The people on the vote no side are some of the education groups, teachers associations, superintendents, administrators, those types of things.
Can you tell me why Kentucky lawmakers want to do this? What would be the benefits that you can find? And maybe I'll also explain the difference between a school voucher versus charter schools for people who may not understand that.
Well, we actually have charter school legislation that passed during the Bevin administration, but you've not seen any charter schools open in the state of Kentucky because it wasn't funded. This amendment, if it passes, would allow the legislature to create a funding stream. So you could open a charter school and potentially $5,000 per student would follow the student to the charter school or to the private school or to the religious school.
I want to ask you about some of the claims being made. For the Vote No group, they say Amendment 2 in the commercial is a blank check for Frankfort politicians to spend our tax dollars on private schools with zero accountability. Is that true?
Well, that's one of the issues currently is that private schools, by the nature of being private, are not necessarily accountable the same way public schools are. So here's what you need to think about. The largest expenditure that the state of Kentucky makes in their state budget is public education. So if you create a program where there are vouchers and potentially you're giving $5,000 per family for a voucher to go to a private or a parochial school, does that not ultimately impact the state budget and the state funding for public education? That's the argument that the no people are making, and it seems like it makes sense to me.
So in the rant line in a few minutes, I've got a couple of callers from viewers who are saying, hey, look, my kids go to private schools. I pay taxes. My taxes should go to fund these schools too as well.
Well, that's a pretty sound argument, except that you choose as a parent and a family to send your child to a private or parochial school. You have the option to send your child to a public school. So I would argue that that's a decision you're making, and therefore you should pay the cost to pursue that.
Okay, let me ask you about the Yes campaign, okay? So their ads contend that other states allow similar measures and they actually improve public schools. What are they saying there?
Well, now the evidence about how successful these programs are or are not is kind of fuzzy. It's individual case-by-case basis. What the data does show that if you adopt a voucher program, which is ultimately what we would have if this passes, what you find is that 70 to 75% of the students that are taking advantage of the vouchers are already in a private or parochial school. So the argument to give potentially low-income families an opportunity to step away from the public schools and move towards a private or parochial school, that's not necessarily what the data shows.
Are there some that would be left out? We ran that soundbite from one of the school superintendents outside Jefferson that said, hey, our kids would have to drive 40 minutes, 50 minutes or so to the nearest private school. They wouldn't use it anyway.
Right. The reality is, as we sit here today in Kentucky, there are really only private schools in Louisville, Lexington, some parts of northern Kentucky, and maybe Bowling Green. Most of the counties around the state, you don't have a private school option. As the superintendent said, it's a 40-mile drive. That's why you're seeing a lot of the rural superintendents come out against this, because it's not that they have private or parochial schools in their area. They fear that the funding source is going to be impacted, and they're going to lose money in the end.
All right, Sam Corbett breaking down the issues for us. It is controversial, but hopefully we've cleared up some of the questions.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thanks
it,
so much,
Sam.
My pleasure.